Donald Trump made history last year when he was the first former president indicted for federal crimes. Well, he's still making history because now this week he becomes the first major presidential party nominee to be indicted for crimes. It's the same crimes, but he's indicted once again. So this is a new superseding indictment from Jack Smith, the special counsel, because of the shenanigans of the Supreme Court. So these are not new crimes or new charges. I mean, I guess they're sort of new charges, but we've got more than enough crimes. We're gonna stick with the ones we have and see if we can get an actual trial going on. But the reason that we need this is because the SCOTUS, of course, did their ruling on presidential immunity, where they nudged the executive branch a little bit closer to being a monarchy, which is a lot of fun. And as a result of that, you need to have this new indictment, but a lot of it is actually the same, sometimes framed a little bit differently. So let's catch you up on what's going on and see, hey, maybe we'll actually find out what Donald Trump did.
A storm is tearing up the digital media industry. Only our audience can save us in these difficult times. Help us reach our goal of 100,000 new members at tyt.com/team.
So none of the 4 charges, and that being conspiracy to defraud the United States, conspiracy to obstruct an official proceeding, obstruction of an attempt to obstruct an official proceeding, and conspiracy against rights, have been dropped. And that's important because some people's reporting of this implies that these are lesser charges. No, the charges are the same. They are just, as I said, being presented in a slightly different way. So the thrust of the changes in this new superseding indictment was to remove any discussion from the indictment of any allegations that might be construed as related to Mr. Trump's official acts as president, while also contending that other acts should be interpreted as the conduct of a private candidate for office. And this is important because the Supreme Court's official position is if you were president and you tried to overthrow the results of an election, that's kind of cool, I guess. So the special counsel needs to draw a really hard line to be like, no, none of this has anything even arguably to do with the official duties of the president. And so as a result of that, some things needed to be tweaked, some needed to be reframed, some needed to be removed. And so the special counsel's deputies removed all allegations concerning Mr. Trump's attempts to strong arm the Justice Department into supporting his false claims that the election had been rigged against him. That sort of activity that he engaged in seems really bad to me, but according to the SCOTUS, it's not a big deal and everybody should shut up about it. So I guess we're gonna move on. And before we discuss this, I just want to let you know that there's been some other movement on the stalled cases against Donald Trump. Jack Smith has appealed Judge Eileen Cannon's decision to throw out the classified documents case. Remember, coming out of that SCOTUS decision, she basically announced, we don't need to do this thing. There had been some shenanigans in how the special counsel was appointed, and as Jack Smith points out, the way that he was appointed is how they've all been appointed. It is super established at this point. But again, we don't know what the SCOTUS might end up saying about that, but at least the appeals process has begun. And so little check-in on 2 of the cases. Sharon, what do you make of that?
I should have gone to law school, but I'm not sure I get it because it's like parsing things. And I think when Judge Chutney, is it?
Chutkin?
Get to look at Chutkin, sorry, Judge, get to look at this and holds a hearing. She's not an activist, and I think she's going to do what she's supposed to do based on what this rogue Supreme Court has to say. And to me, and again, I'm not a lawyer, maybe I'm making too much of it, that doesn't bode well in my mind for holding Donald J. Trump accountable. So I'm confused. I don't know where they're going to end up here, but it just to me doesn't look good, John.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was very glad that we had these little updates because I still have this apparently now old-fashioned belief that like if the president committed a bunch of horrendous crimes against our country, we should probably know about that. Either on the one hand, ever, or on the other hand, before he gets to become president again. And I know, again, it's not a popular position to hold. And some of the most powerful people in the country with lifetime appointments don't think that it's important that any of you ever find out about it. But I think it'd be cool. So, by the way, none of this is going to get us to that before the election because, and this sucks to acknowledge, I would love to be one of those people that just comes in front of the camera and tells you everything you wanted is turning out that way and all the bad people are suffering. But unfortunately, that's not the way it's happening. They succeeded. They got basically what they want. Not in all the cases, the civil cases, the fraud case, the big fines and all that. We succeeded on that. He's been found, liable for sexual abuse. They did their massive business fraud and all that. But when it comes to the criminal cases, their strategy was, we're not really going to try to defend this guy because there's no defense. We're just going to drag it out. Hope that the Supreme Court says that crimes aren't crimes anymore. Or maybe if we wait long enough, Donald Trump becomes president again and he can just snap his fingers, the entire thing is gone. And we never find out what actually happened. And unfortunately, much of that strategy has already succeeded. They don't really have to do anything from this point. Now, there are still some of these cases where maybe we'll get some sort of resolution. So, Fani Willis is still working down in Georgia. There is the possibility that versions of that case could still pop up, for instance, in Arizona, maybe. And for these, theoretically, if he doesn't get into the White House, then we could have an actual resolution. And by the way, I'm not one of the people, and nothing against you if you are, I'm not one of the people that's like, well, if he doesn't become president again, then who cares? He doesn't have power. Okay, that's great. And maybe that's the most important thing. But if he did these things, which he did, because we saw him do them, then I want justice. Whether he ever gets power again, I want justice. Even if he's never gonna wield executive power again, if he did this stuff and if he belongs in jail, then he should spend the last years of his life in jail. Maybe call me a petty B or whatever, but I believe in justice. So I don't know. I share your overall concerns about what this entire episode, I guess, has said about our criminal justice system. Any other thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I'm someone who should spend more time living in the moment, but that's just not my personality. So I've also been thinking down the line, if he does not become president and it's Kamala Harris, I think that the pressure will be on immediately to let's just turn the page. Let's just not do this. Let's let the American people heal. This is not Nixon. This is a guy who is a lingering, ongoing threat. The other guy didn't do all that, okay? Did some bad things, and then he went away. He went away. He tried to even make amends and do some good things after that in private life.
And I'm glad that you brought up Nixon because it's so objectively so much worse than what he did. I mean, he was terrible in a lot of different ways. But if we found out hey, TDR, boom, A block. It turns out that Donald Trump wiretapped some Democrats or whatever. Would we even be talking about that in a week? Maybe that would be another case. It would be in the mix, but it wouldn't be in the top 3 what Nixon had done. And yet, not only was Trump much worse than Nixon, but we're much worse than we were, at least in terms of expecting anything from our elected officials. We're just that partisan at this point. And so I hold out hope. Again, I remain naive at my late age. I'm in my early 60s. I've got a little bit of that naivete. And so I'm happy about these developments. Thanks for watching our video. Did you know that you can support our show by becoming a subscriber? Just click the subscribe button and also ring the bell so that you get notifications when we're live or when we post new content.